Well, hello. Once again, can I talk this afternoon? But once again, we're back for another episode of My Two Cents for Change. And it's just that, My Two Cents for Change. That's always the takeaway that I have after the episode. But this one is a little different. This is up close and personal. And I know in the Black community, we've had a lot of issues with hiding stuff. What happens in this house stays in this house. Um, but a lot of our Black children and children in general got molested and things happened to them, and nobody wanted to talk about it. It was hidden. Well, today we have a special guest that's going to come on and give you her story of what happened to her. And I know we singles have a lot of stuff we have to deal with and we never want to talk about it. So if you're going to need, if it's always good to get counseling, if you go through difficult situations, things that you feel like you can't handle, we all need somebody. So I'm going to bring her on and she's going to tell her story. But in the meantime, welcome to My Two Cents for Change. Come on in, Miss Kia.
Hello.
Hi. I can Okay, I really can't see you, but because that glare in the back. But anyway, this is Miss Kia. And so Kia, I'm just want you to I'm introducing you. You can tell them anything you want to tell them about yourself, who you are,
Mhm.
um, that kind of thing. You want to tell them right now, go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Kia. I was raised in Florida. I was raised in Florida. However, I moved from Baltimore to Florida when I was like 6.
Okay,
And
who are you? That's that part. Remember, I said I want you to
oh,
tell us who you are. You have any children? What's going on with
okay,
your life right now. Then we'll go back.
okay, okay. So again, my name is Kia. I have 3 sons and a daughter. Um, my sons are 35, 26, and 30, and my daughter is 13. I live in Leesburg, Florida. I work at Cornerstone Hospice. I do Medicare billing at Cornerstone Hospice. I've been married twice and divorced twice. And yeah,
Okay. So we know a little bit about who you are. You're a mom. You're Kia first.
yes,
We have to put that first because we put those titles to make us who we are. But I said all that because we're going back to your story and how you got there and to
okay.
understand the decisions you made to get you where you are right now. But you're a Christian, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
And I had a conversation with you and just you have a story to tell. And I
yes,
want them to hear it. And I know you kind of told me I'm going somewhere with this. Well, I
yeah.
want you kind of to bring them in how you got to the point, stop when you get to the point where it started, but go back to how you got to that household.
Okay, okay, okay. Like my mother used to live in Baltimore. We moved to Florida when I was 6,
Mhm.
and she dropped me off at my aunt's house. And my aunt had 4 boys and 1 girl. So she dropped me off at my aunt's house, and my aunt raised me. But three of the young men that were in the house,
Okay, but
were,
how
I'm
did you
sorry.
how did you tell you about your mom, how you got there from the story you how you got.
Well, okay. My mom was from Virginia.
Hmm.
Her mom had 7 kids. She was
Hmm.
paralyzed down the right side of her body. My grandmother was, and it was said she was paralyzed because she was dealing with a gentleman who she didn't want to deal with anymore. And they said that he put some type of curse on her, and it was supposed to kill her, but it only killed the right side of her body. And at that time, she was 19 years old. So
Hmm.
she had 7 kids with the right side of her body paralyzed. So my uncle came to help her. He took my mother and moved her to Baltimore.
Hmm.
And that's where she was raised, in Baltimore. So my uncle and my aunt raised her in Baltimore, and her living circumstances there. I mean, they were very well off. They did well for themselves, but for some reason, the aunt used to treat my mother really, really mean. So She moved to Florida because she moved to Florida when I was 6 because they got into some type of altercation, and my mother just upped and moved to Florida. So that's how we wound up in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And when we moved to Florida, she took me to my aunt's house, and she dropped me off there, over there with her, who was her older sister. She dropped me off with her older sister and her husband, and
Mm-hmm.
there, and I was raised there until 10th or 11th grade. Yeah.
Okay. So, our topic is, molested by family. And
Hmm.
so who are the family members that molested you? You don't have to
Three of
give names, just
Yeah, it was 3 of her sons, and that
Mhm.
happened until from first grade up until the 10th grade.
So basically the time you moved in is when they started.
Yes, I'm even going to go as far as to say the first day.
What? So
Yeah,
so how do you remember
I
specific?
just I don't know it. I don't remember the absolute details. I've kind of blocked those out, but I do remember that I was I think her son, I think my cousin was about 17 years old, and I was laying on the bed next to him. We were watching cartoons,
Hmm.
and yeah, and that's when he, you know, did what he did. I remember standing in the mirror in the bathroom and crying because I was really hurting, and not understanding what had happened. I remember being so ashamed and thinking to myself, I can never tell anybody about this. It was horrible. But
Wow.
like I said, I don't remember. I couldn't give you play by play details as to
I wouldn't want
what.
you to
No,
relive
no, I'm just,
that.
yeah, I'm just thinking that's the way the Lord uses to protect you from. I just know enough to know that it happened.
Okay, so the 17-year-old is who started.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
Um, I mean, you were 6 years old.
yes.
That had to be tough on your body. Was any other adult
You
there with you?
know, because my aunt owned a bar. So she owned a bar. So she was never home. She'd get up at 6 in the morning or earlier. And she didn't get back home until 2 or 3 o'clock at night
What about her
the
husband?
next morning. Her husband, they were they what is it called when they work in when they take people place to place to pick oranges and stuff like that.
Oh,
He was a
okay.
migrant. Yeah, he worked a migrant. He got people to do that migrant work. So he was always gone too. So it was basically just the
So
kids
I
there.
guess the 17-year-old must have told the other ones. How old were the other two?
I don't know. I know that they were older than, okay, the 17-year-old was the oldest.
Hmm.
And then the the second one, I don't know how old he was. I just knew that they were,
They were all in high school or middle school and high school.
yes, all of them were in high school. Yeah. But
Oh
I
boy,
don't know
so
their exact ages.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
So it happened the first night, and
Mm-hmm.
you cried, and she wasn't there, so you felt like you couldn't tell anybody. So then, did the 17-year-old start again, or did the other ones come in?
No, it continued. They didn't stop until one day the Lord told me in my spirit, you can say no. I heard it so clear in my spirit. You can say no. You don't have to do this because they're asking you or they're making you feel like, you don't. You can say no.
So the first time he asked you, or he just did it?
Oh, he just did it. But I
But
said, the
then,
Lord told me in my spirit that
no, I
when I was in
understand
fifth
that.
grade.
But what
Oh,
I'm
okay.
saying is, after
No,
the first incident, you're saying they asked you after that.
no, ma'am. No.
So you're saying that the Lord told you to say you could say no. So how does that? I'm trying to
No,
follow.
I'm just saying if they were, when I feel like if they approached me, it wasn't like I had to go along with it, basically what he was saying. When they approached me to, do whatever it is they were trying to do.
But
You don't
this
have
is
to
as
go
you got
along with,
older, though, right?
huh?
This is as you got older, because when you were six,
Yes.
they're
Yes.
much bigger than you. So it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
say no when you're in a house full of guys that's
Yes.
doing it to you, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So it was, yes, as I got older. when I got older. I know it specifically is when I was in the 10th grade.
So it stopped in the 10th grade.
Yes. Yep.
Oh.
Yes.
So what kind of thoughts were going through your mind the entire time? Because these were your cousins.
Right. So when as I was growing up, for some reason, I don't know what kind of relationship my aunt and my mother had. So she would always talk bad about my mother. And when she would talk bad about my mother, she would say stuff about me. Like when I start developing breasts and stuff, she was like, "You're getting those breasts because I know you letting them little boys at school touch you." And she used to tell me stuff like, "You're going to be a whore like your mother when you grow up." I mean, it was like all types of seeds were planted to water what was already happening, to make me, as I look back on it, to make me feel less of myself, to make me feel like if anything was happening, it was my fault.
How could it be your fault at 6 years old? That's when it started. And
Yeah.
did she not have a clue?
I
The little
believe now, looking back, I believe that she knew. I really do. But she was the type of mother that pretty much gave her kids what they wanted. She ain't see nothing. She ain't see no wrong in them. Because I remember, because my grandmother used to live with us too, and I used to sleep in the bed with my grandmother. I know my grandmother told her what was going on.
Oh, she
I
did.
know she did. Yes, my grandmother did tell her what was going on, but she always was like, I remember one time we were in a laundromat and we were washing clothes, and she held a pair. She had a pair of my panties. She's like, "Smell these panties. You smell like a grown woman." And just so embarrassing and humiliating. So I didn't
Wow.
feel like I had anybody that I could really go to and say, "Hey, this is happening to me. This is what I'm experiencing."
So you
And
said
not
your
even my
grandmother
mother,
knew,
because my
right?
mother, I didn't hear you. I'm
You
sorry.
said your grandmother knew, right?
Yes, but my
So you didn't feel like
grandmother,
you could talk to her?
I mean, I probably could have, but I didn't think to talk to her. I really didn't.
So how did she know?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how my grandmother knew.
Was she a Christian woman?
Yes, she believed it. My grandmother was like I said, she was paralyzed on her right side of her body. As she
Hmm.
gotten older from having strokes and stuff, her speech wasn't the best. So she would stutter and stuff when she talked. So but I remember that when we would go to bed, she would have me kneel down beside her and we both would pray. And when she would pray, it would come out like nothing was wrong with her speech. And I do remember that about her.
Okay, so the you said somebody put roots or something on her. So is that what caused her to have the strokes?
That's what was said in the family, that a old boyfriend put a root on her.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Wow. So do you
Yeah.
have to still see these cousins?
Um One, okay. I was working at the hospital, and one of the cousins was in the hospital. The one of the cousins that was like one of the main culprits. And I was working in the hospital, and the Lord had me to go up to his room and to talk to him and to, just express how I felt about what he did, that I forgive him, and to
Hmm.
pray for him. That was really hard because I was like, but before then, I mean, I could talk to him and see him and speak to him, but I didn't feel like I was holding anything against him. But when the Lord asked me to do that, it showed me that I was holding something against him, because I was feeling like, why should I have to pray for him after what he did to me? But I was obedient. I went and I talked to him, but the thing about it was, I was talking to him, but he was unconscious because they kept him sedated because he was so violent when he wasn't under sedation. So they kept him sedated.
Why was he violent?
I don't know. They was like, when he's not awake, when he's awake, he's fighting at the nurses. He's trying to spit on them and just cussing at them. I don't know. He was, yeah. So
Oh,
I think that was spiritual. That's what I believe. Yeah.
okay.
Because he was on drugs. Then he had diabetes really bad. So he ended up in a hospital. And so he couldn't get the drugs. So I believe that could have agitated him too. Yeah.
Okay, that's just one. What about the other two?
Okay. The other one, um, he I mean, like I said, when I would see him, I would speak to him. He passed away. So
Which one?
he
The 17-year-old? That was
no, no, that one he's still alive. But the other one that's under him, yeah, he's under the 17-year-old, the next one. So he died. Um, I didn't go to his funeral. Um, he just died all of a sudden. And I found out from other as we got older and us girls came together and we were talking, found out that the one who just died all of a sudden, he had done things to other girl cousins, but they never said anything. So then I'm back to, because I'm older than them, and I was like, man, what if I would have said something? If I would have said something, it probably would have prevented them from having to go through that.
Yeah, you can't put that guilt on yourself though,
Right.
because they did the unthinkable to
Yeah.
their own cousin.
Yeah.
So, but at least you all figured that out. And and this is might sound a little callous or cold,
Okay.
but what you do to others, you can't
Mm,
tell God what consequence is going to come with that.
right.
And so, having done that to you and others,
Mhm.
you just don't know if that was a part of. Well, obviously, God allowed it, but he passed away suddenly and relatively young, correct?
Right. Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying. You just don't know how God's going to handle it. That's why when people tell you to forgive, you have to forgive. And He says, "Vengeance is mine," said the Lord. I will repay. So you can't try to go after people for doing stuff to you. Now, there are legal
Right.
ramifications as well on some things that people do. And so
Right.
if you decided you wanted to tell that kind of stuff, then
Mm,
they have to, suffer that way as well. And this is for those that's listening that might be going through these kind of things, you know, but don't just I know a lot of people make up stuff on family members when they're upset, but if
mhm.
they've done it to you, rightfully so, you can go to the law and ask for charges to be, placed upon them based on the information you tell them. And a lot of stuff, you're right. God made our bodies perfect because
Mhm.
trauma, it
Mhm.
suppresses those memories to an extent.
Yes.
Like like me, I had a heart attack. I don't remember it at all. That was trauma on my body. And so,
Right.
and sometimes when things happen to us, he does the same thing in those situations because that was traumatic. Being 6 years old and having somebody
Mhm.
do that kind of thing to you,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
just the unthinkable. But God takes care of that for us. We don't have
Mhm.
to pray for bad things. We actually should be praying for God to save them, to change
Right.
their minds
Right.
because they've gone through, obviously for them to do stuff like that, sometimes they've actually gone through stuff themselves and just don't do
Mhm.
something about it. So I said all to say, you've gone through a lot and then you still had to encounter them because they were family. What about the
Mhm.
last?
The okay. The
Because you
one who was
said
in the hospital.
no, you said that. Yeah, the one in the
Okay.
hospital, the youngest one.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
what about the
Yes. The
17-year-old?
17-year-old. The 17-year-old. Um, he's been homeless, um, strung out on crack, cocaine for years. So yeah, but
All of them
even
seem to have some
even
kind of drug issues.
yes. Well, the middle one had a gambling issue. He was always gambling, so that was his thing, gambling. But the 17-year-old, the one that was a 17-year-old, now, I mean, I've seen him. I'll speak. I don't. I'm telling you, the Lord has really helped me to forgive him because I can see him and say hello and embrace him and all of that, and not feel like any kind. Because I know, like you said, the Lord says, "Vengeance is mine." But I'm wise enough to know that I would never leave my daughter around him.
Oh,
Not
you
yeah.
should.
Yeah, yeah. Just because he seems cool on the as you when you see him, he
But
seems cool.
your sons too. Your sons are grown now, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
if you're watching and you have sons or daughters,
Right.
please, if you have any clue about somebody not being right, and you can pay attention to how they interact with the children while you're there.
Right.
I know a lot of us parents are busy working, we're doing all kind of things, but you have to be mindful of who you leave your children with.
Right.
And I know that they thought they were doing good because you said your mother had some issues and they were just
Mm-hmm.
living with the sister who had a husband.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that it would have been the husband if anything, but it ended up being the children. And I
Right.
hear a lot of that stuff happens frequently.
Yeah.
And but you can't carry that guilt with you if things happen. It was allowed to happen. Not
Right.
that God's like, go do this. God will never tell anybody to do anything wrong.
Right.
But if he allows it to happen, I thank you that he created a strong soldier that's still here, and
Right.
you gave your life to the Lord, and you
Right.
allow God to use you to be able to forgive and tell your story so that others can know that they have a chance too to, if they've gone through things, to be honest with themselves first and foremost, and
Mhm.
tell God and let God handle it, and then
Mhm.
ask God to heal you.
Right.
And
But
that's the
one of the main things that I have learned from this, one of the key things that I've learned from this, is that when you are a person that trusts in God, you rely on God, you want to walk in the way of God and fulfill the plans of God, God will direct you as far as being a parent. So had my mother been a woman of God who looked to God for her direction, I wouldn't have ended up in that situation. So I know people, and I'm only saying this to say that there are people that will say, "Oh, what kind of God would allow that?" You can't say that because God gives us choices, and our choices don't
Well,
just
now
affect
wait a
us.
minute, but you were young. He gives us
Yeah.
choices, but the thing is, his word says we're going to have tribulations with us all.
Right. Right.
So it does. He didn't say what age. He didn't say the
Right.
circumstance. So we can always look back and say if this person had done, but you don't. Everybody
Right.
has a story. Nobody would have known you had a story had you not told it. So when
Right.
people have parents that do things that they look at them as like, well, why did they do this? They could have done this. They could have, but the if you've gone through that, just imagine what she could have gone through, and
Right.
then what her grandmother could have gone through, or her
Right.
mother could have gone through,
Right.
and they pass it down. That's why they talk about breaking generational curses, because
Right.
we pass stuff down. We don't talk about it, but it's
Right.
passed down. And
Hmm.
the great thing about today's age, we have people that can assist you and help you through these things, and allow you to be get healed from every traumatic thing that you've gone through. But
Right.
unfortunately, back in the days, they just didn't talk about it. They just
Right.
kept it to themselves, kept it in the family. Those who knew, those who didn't. So
Right.
I just want to let you know that I once watched one of these shows, and I have that number on the bottom for free counseling. It's TD Jakes Ministry. They have a
Hmm.
free counseling hotline, and it's area code 214-333-6483 in option one. So I took that information down because I know I deal with people. We had somebody on here talking about grief and different things like that. So I want to make sure that and if you call, reverse 180, that's 407-504-7343, we can direct you to someone as well that can give you the therapy you need. But it's important to talk about it, because if not, we're going to keep passing it down from
Right.
generation to generation, and the healing has not begun. So even though you talk about it, you still need to get to the root of where it stemmed from, because sometimes, like you said, we kind of suppress those feelings and memories and don't
Right.
remember all of it. And so with that, it kind of makes it still there, make it still be there.
Hmm.
I talked to a gentleman that was talking about unforgiveness. He was on the show a couple of months back, and he's still touched by it. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? So when you're
Hmm.
touched by those kind of things, you need to get therapy, you need to get healing. And I thank God that you found God to help you get
Yes.
through these things, and He
Hmm.
will help you. Like He said, you have to forgive. So I thank God that you were able to forgive
Hmm.
and move on. And when you interact, and you keep it moving, and you know enough not to let your children be around these
Right.
guys, because just because it's family, that's the
Right.
worst.
Hmm.
Families do it more often. because we're
Mm,
trusting them because they're family.
right.
But you got to remember, if you go back, they probably won't talk about it. If your ancestors, your grandmother, and great grandmother, all those people still living, they won't talk about it.
Mm,
But those, if it's something that happened to me, I'm talking about it. And I thank you for talking about it because it's going to help somebody else. So how did God help you? I mean, other than just because he can tell you, but because you're human and you got this flesh still here, how
hmm
did you get through the process of being able to forgive? I mean, you can forgive with your words, but the
Yeah.
memories are still there somewhat. So how did God
Well,
help you to get through all of that?
he helped me. He helped me to. Okay. He helped me to forgive them because he showed me what the intent of it was for. So he showed me that how just like God uses us, Satan uses people. So he showed me how Satan used them to damage me because evidently he must have known what he I don't know. He showed me the purpose behind the molestation and the sexual abuse and all that. The purpose was to make me not be able to identify with who he really created me to be. So when he showed me that when you go through that kind of stuff, you internalize it and you kind of blame yourself. You look at yourself in a different way, it's low self esteem. You're thinking that stuff like your worth is just your physical attributes, not being smart, God fearing, and all of that. So if he can keep you focused on that, your physical attributes, because I noticed as I was growing up, that's what I would use to, if I was interested in a male.
Well, I think we lost her. Sometimes when people call in, if your phone is not on do not disturb, then it'll cut you off. But you heard her and her story. So I thank her for being here. If you have issues, like I said, feel free to call us. You can call this number here on the bottom of the screen to get some counseling. I know a lot of times you have insurance. Insurance will pay for that. Your jobs will pay that through EAP. So just know that the help is out there. You just have to want the help, and you have to want to be truthful to the people that's trying to help you. The therapist can't help you if you can't if you don't tell them the story. So I thank you again, and until next time, that's my 2 cents for change.